Alright, we are live.
Sweet.
So I'll just switch back over. You can start counting in a couple seconds when
Yeah.
you're ready.
Alright, so I will go ahead and give a countdown, I guess. So, yeah. On go. 3, 2, 1, go. Howdy, folks. So this is, I am HiddenDistance. This is the La-Mulana remake. And we'll start off the game by skipping a bunch of text that relates to, you know, plot things. So, this is a Metroidvania or Castlevania, depending on which one of those two franchises you like more, I suppose. One of the interesting things about this game is that it's a little bit different than others. It's not strictly about exploration and kind of finding items and that sort of thing, though that does play a role in it for sure. A lot of the advancement in La-Mulana centers around solving obscure puzzles. And, yeah, it's something of that's a bit contentious about this game. Some people love them, some people hate them. But the platforming's pretty good and pretty fun regardless. It kind of follows in a tradition of sort of like a classic Castlevania in terms of like how the character controls. There's a lot of momentum to how you move around and do that kind of thing. So like any jumps that you have are, for the most part, committed. So like if I jump horizontally, I will be going in that direction whether I want to be or not. So it's definitely one of those things that you have to take into account as you go through the game. So there are a lot of, you know, traps, enemies, monsters, and their owns, things that want to kill you. Not many block-pushing puzzles, which is probably good, and fewer of them still that are at that speed. But, so the first item that I'm going to get my hands on here is falling all the way down here, because I mistimed that jump. But the first item that I'm going to get my hands on here is the Holy Grail. Damn it, I did that again. Hang on. And the Holy Grail is going to allow me to traverse the ruins a lot more quickly. It allows me to teleport basically to any field that I've visited previously. Provided I've scanned like a particular tablet prior to wanting to go there. And that's something that I have to do, that I actually have to do to finish the game in every area. So, pretty much what I'm doing in this sort of opening section is going around and collecting a bunch of money, while simultaneously doing some puzzles along the way. So a lot of the routing in La-Mulana is... it's kind of centered around the idea of trying to eliminate as much backtracking as you can, because in games like this there's a tendency to have to revisit a lot of areas over and over again because, you know, you solve a little bit of a puzzle or you get a new item and then, hey, it opens up, you know, this particular area or something along those lines. So we want to weed out as much of that as we possibly can, and generally in a casual playthrough of this game there's a whole lot of that you have to do. So yeah. Anyway, the things that I'm buying here, I've bought a piece of translation software, which I'm now going to install on my laptop. The laptop actually has a memory limit, so I can only have a certain number of programs installed at the same time. And they do, you know, they do lots of different things that are valuable for the run. So the one that I picked up is one that translates La-Mulanese characters into English, which I need to be able to read things like this grail point. So now I can teleport to this grail point whenever I want, for the most part. The other item I picked up was the handy scanner, which of course I also need to read or examine things in the ruins. The other thing that I bought You can actually see the counter for at the top right of the screen next to my money, the money in yellow. And what's next to that is my weight counter. So I have 7 of those right now. And weights are sort of a sort of primary puzzle currency in this game. So there's a lot of those daises, like the one that I just interacted with. And you have to put a weight on it in order for it to activate or do something. Not all of those some things are good. But we are going to wind up needing to interact with a whole lot of those things as we go through the games. Just like that. So the number of weights that I have are really tight, particularly in the first part of the run here. So I need to make sure that they're all, you know, kind of in the right place and all that kind of thing. The other item that I've just picked up...
Oh, I was going to ask if I could cut in real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Sure, so we got a donation during last run from Captain Clever for $100.
Oh, yeah!
The lack of Half-Life on the schedule is killing my Valuethon, but for real, awesome games, awesome games, awesome runners, awesome commentary. Hope you're planning to do these as a pun thing. Thank you, Captain. Also, if we get at least $20 during this run, Hidden will be doing the Hell Temple at the end of it, so keep that in mind as a donation incentive. If you have a couple bucks to throw away, we would appreciate it.
Oh man, just something to add on to that. There are a lot of new strats in La-Mulana, which I have yet to sort of start blathering on about because I'm, you know, quite early in the game yet for them still. But those strats haven't been done in a Hell Temple run yet, so there's a real good chance that it would just be straight up world record Hell Temple. But yeah, so more coins, more buying things, that kind of thing. I just bought the Hermes boots, which are a really great early game item, which is kind of why part of it is routed the way that it is. And the Hermes boots make me move super fast. So obviously, this being a speedrun, kind of good to have. Hand on is the feather, which allows me to do double jumps. And then the next kind of big item that I want to get my hands on, or my grubby little mitts, is going to be the flail whip, which is the most powerful weapon in the game. And it's important to make a distinction, because you can see at the top right, I have my equipable my weapon, which is the whip, and then there's my sub-weapon, which I can switch between the various sub-weapons I've collected so far. Caltrops are baller. I'm using them to damage boost off of ladders, because there's a lot of really long ladders in the game. And I don't really want to have to climb down all of them. So if Lameza takes damage, Lameza being the primary character of the game, and, you know, the person I'm controlling, if he takes damage while on a ladder, he just falls off the ladder. So we can force that to happen by dumping caltrops sort of into the little floor by the ladder and then climbing back up the ladder into them, which I gotta say it's probably... Caltrops are probably one of my favorite items in this game, bar none, because of what they do for you. So this was a cool kind of thing. Oh, I just barely got that. So the puzzle in this room, this tablet here, reads something about, like, those that fly shall be cast down. Basically, that's a hint to... You have to kill the bats on the screen before the treasure chest opens up. So it's fastest to do that while you're falling down the screen. Sometimes it can be pretty hard and tricky, though, because the bats, while they start in set places, the patterns that they have are super random. And sometimes some of those patterns put them into places where, you know, you just can't really hit them very well. So I'm going to take damage here by getting struck by lightning. It's a bit of a damage boost, but really it's because I want to open that pot, and I need to use my weapon to open that pot. So this is a concept in La-Mulana where there are sacred objects or sacred areas, and the game gets really peeved when you use weapons in them. And part of that is sort of like a story thing. But the other part of it is basically like a gameplay mechanic, because the developers didn't really want you necessarily just randomly like attacking every wall and magooing all over the place, you know, and like blindly falling into every puzzle solution. So the idea was that, you know, they'd have this thing in the game where they would where they would punish you for playing in that fashion, which I find rather amusing. Many others probably don't, but hey, what can you do? So I've just picked up the axe. The axe is a super slow weapon, but it's also a super powerful weapon. My whip does, I think, 2 damage a hit. The knife that I have now does 3 damage a hit, if I'm not mistaken, and the axe does 5. Also, it has a really nice attack arc, which is good. Fuck you, bat. Pardon me. So, bats are really the bane of my existence in this game. That bat just tried to really choke out the run. Getting hit there and falling down here means that I'd have to use an extra weight. And I don't have extra weights to use, which means that I'd have to go and get extra cash, which means that I'd... You know, and then I need to do an extra shop. Anyway, here's this, this new piece of tech in La-Mulana. It's called the Raindrop, which is named after the gentleman who found it, Raindrop Dry, twitch.tv/RaindropDry. He's going to be running this game, actually, in AGDQ later this year. So, floors in La-Mulana are just kind of like this super optional thing, I guess. Is how it turns out. So we've known for a really long time, and if you have played this game yourself blind, chances are at some point in time you got stuck on a floor and then were warped to like the surface or something along those lines. And this is something that we've wanted to know about and wanted to do consistently for a really long time. So Raindrop Dry figured out a way to make that happen on an exceedingly consistent basis. Basically, you grapple onto a wall, and it sets your... Sorry, a right-facing wall, and this is kind of important. It has to be a right-facing wall, and then you grapple onto it, and then you move forward while simultaneously like attacking and moving forward on the same, you know, frame or something. The timing's very specific. And if you do that properly, you get kind of stuck in the wall. And when you get stuck in the wall in this game, the game does various things to try and get you out of it. Sometimes it will zip you, depending on the particular level geometry. A lot of the time, you'll just kind of get sucked into the floor as if it's quicksand. So every single time you jump, you move down a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And as you can imagine, we can abuse this to really great effect as we're going throughout the speedrun. It's something that was found quite recently, and we keep finding new stuff that's going on with it, kind of all the time. So, yeah, I think just actually on Thursday I found sort of like a new way to kind of use it, in a sense, which saves a tremendous amount of time. So the route is currently almost constantly being under revision, because, you know, we're talking about like in the last month or so, all this sort of stuff has been found. Alright. So you see, I just used my last weight, and that's very convenient. or not very convenient, but the timing's really nice because I'm about to go into this shop, which I have to go into, actually, to buy a number of things, but it also gives me an opportunity to buy weights. This area is called the Twin Labyrinths, and if you're paying real close attention, you notice that this wasn't the screen I just came from. And it's a rather confusing place. So now I'm going to be using another glitch, which applies to left side walls, and I'm actually surprised I got that quite as quickly as I did. So, okay, when there's like a pot or other object on the left side of a screen, like right up against a wall, if you use your grapple claw to clip into to clip onto the wall, or hang onto the wall on the same instant that you touch the pot, Lameza will get stuck inside the pot. And again, the game is like, hey, I don't really like the fact that Lameza is inside a pot. Can we do something to, get him out of there? And a lot of the time what it'll do is force Lameza kind of to the left. And that winds up sending Lameza typically through a wall. And then you can go to the next screen. So one thing that I do want to note about all of this clipping and stuff, it's really dependent on where you are screen transitioning to. So for example, if I go to a screen where there isn't a way to go down from that screen in any sort of legitimate fashion, the game will be like, hey, there isn't a screen here, and then it just loads the surface, which is, sort of the first screen that you started on in the game. So you have to have like some kind of legitimate screen-to-screen transition, otherwise it's just going to boot you out. So you can't do it literally everywhere, but mostly everywhere. Oh wow, that's bad. And annoying. Okay. So caltrops are also really useful for damage boosting, because Lameza gets iframes when he takes damage. He also gets knocked back a little bit. But you generally want to get knocked back in a preferable direction. And then, of course, while he has iframes, we can abuse that fact to either go through certain enemies or avoid taking a tremendous amount of damage from something that would kill us. Though the latter is not something that's typically seen that much in the run, but it can be useful in a pinch. Okay. So that dude with the weird claws back there that you saw... Oh, an extra weight. I don't actually remember that mini-boss's name. This is Blair. And as you can see, the axe is real good. 4 hits is enough to do Blair in. So the axe is a really good weapon, really high damage weapon, and it's quite powerful to have this early in the game. Which again is one of the kind of interesting ways in which this game is sort of made. You can kind of go in a lot of different directions if you want to. The only things that are going to stop are basically going to be mini-bosses that are maybe like a little bit harder than you're well enough equipped for, or puzzles that you maybe haven't figured out yet. So given the fact that, this is a speedrun and I practice, and I already know the solutions to all of the puzzles, that allows us to accrue lots of very early game benefits. And now suddenly a random block pushing puzzle. So, the other thing that I'm leading up to with all of these sort of puzzles that I'm kind of doing along the way, because I don't want to come back to these areas, is that I'm setting up for a couple of the... Excuse me. early Guardian fights. So there's 8 Guardians in the game. They're sort of the major bosses, and you will know them when you see them, because there's this whole rigmarole in summoning them with an Ankh and then breaking an Ankh Jewel in front of them. It's pretty obvious, and I'll also very likely be talking about them. So there's a lot of things that get unlocked when various Guardians die, also places that they give us access to, which is really helpful. One other thing, you're going to notice me using the grapple claw in places like that, and that's because when you kick off the wall from using a grapple, you do go a little bit faster than you would ordinarily be walking. It's not a huge time save because you do have to stop to grapple onto the wall, but it is... it's one of those things where every little bit counts. Speaking of which, this... Ah, damn. If you're really quick, you can push that boulder off of the edge before getting hit by the flame there. So I think that's the longest ladder in the game, and I'm super pleased to not have to climb down it. So one of the interesting things with this route, as it happens, is that so every area that contains a Guardian has an Ankh Jewel to correspondingly summon that Guardian. But I'm going to be doing a lot of that out of order in this particular route. So I'm actually going to be using Ankh Jewels from different areas to summon different bosses, and then have to go back to those other areas, not retreading ground, mind you, but back to those other areas in order to get those other Ankh Jewels so that I can then go and fight those original or other Guardians that I stole their Ankh Jewel to go and do some other boss fight for. So, I'm going to draw all of your attention to the top left of the screen. So there's 2 colored bars there. One of them represents my health meter, and that's in green, and is also indicated by the number 91 for the moment. But there's another bar that's right underneath that one in blue, and that is my soulstone counter. So soulstones are a mechanic in La-Mulana wherein if you get enough of those soulstones to sort of fill that bar, which I am about to get right here, you get a full health refill, which is good because it means that I can kind of face tank a little bit of this boss. But I'm just about to head out to summon the first Guardian that I'm going to fight in this game, which is technically the 4th Guardian. But we gotta do a little bit more prep just before doing that, so I have to scan this grail so that I can come back here later. And then I have to go back and talk to this woman here, who is the Fairy Queen, who we talked to earlier. She wanted me to go and get some random item to show to her that I'm, like, worthy or something like that. So now, all of her fairies are going to help me. And I need a specific fairy right now, as it turns out, on the way to Bahamut, because this is the easiest and fastest place to get one. So I hope you like the first couple of notes of this song, because I usually spend some amount of time doing this. So every time you interact with this little white glowing point here, you summon a fairy. There's 4 types of fairies, and I want one of them. And the one that I want has a 5% chance of spawning. If you guess the correct number of fairies it takes, I will bake you a cookie and send it to you. By a man with a donkey. Please note that if the donkey expires en route to your house, twitch.tv/HiddenDistance, twitch.tv/TheBoiks, and Team Value are not responsible for donkey-related mishaps in your receipt of said cookie. Sorry, that's just how it is. So the one that I want to spawn here is a Key Fairy. As I said, 5% chance. Good runs rely on this being reasonably quick. But it's not particularly uncommon at all for this to kind of go on for a little while. But, you know, because it's a marathon, good luck is kind of out of the question in that respect. So I can tell what fairy I'm going to get based on the pattern of stars that appear on the screen. So there's... the most common pattern I'm getting here is the 2-star. 2 stars rotating clockwise, which is a healing fairy. The next most common would be the weapon fairy, which is 2 stars rotating counterclockwise. After that, at a 15% chance, it's 4 stars, but 2 are rotating clockwise and 2 are rotating counterclockwise. And, of course, the pattern that I want is 4 stars, all rotating counterclockwise. Which, oh baby, this is a hot fairy grinding session here. There we go. By the way, shoutouts to Fishwiggle. Okay. So the key fairy actually only sticks around for 2 minutes. Once I've spawned her, that's 2 in-game minutes. And there's a bunch of time that's not counted during that, like, say, screen transitions and stuff like that. So I have a place that I need to get to after this boss fight to use the key fairy at, or for the key fairy to use her little key and open up. 37! Wow, that's some hot business. But this is Bahamut. So I get into his hitbox with the axe to sort of reset my attack animation. Bahamut has iframes too, so I can't just, you know, swing and swing and swing. This is the pattern I never want to see, which Bahamut will do sometimes once Bahamut hits half health, and that's to spit corn pops at you. But that's okay. We actually got fairly okay luck on that boss fight. If you get really, really, really bad luck, the key fairy will despawn. But thankfully that didn't happen there. So, I have to grab this other seal, which is something that helps me open stuff. And now we go into the Chamber of Extinction to have the key fairy open a place I'm going to be going later. I won't be going there right now. But this is called the Gate of Time. So she'll just do her thing. This used to be a puzzle that we had to do where we had to walk through a wall, but now we're walking through a wall in a completely different way, which is much faster and also much better. Okay. Now at this point I'm basically going to be setting up and going directly into the next Guardian fight, because most of the work here has been done. I had to just shove this cart kind of all the way down here and go and grab the Ankh Jewel. And that's going to help us open up the area that we need to go to get that feather I was talking about, which will allow me to do double jumping. Sanic, meanwhile, has had a little too much coffee. He's just sort of going nuts up there. Is the floor clip patched out on later versions of the game? None of the clips have actually been patched out on later versions of the game, unless we include La-Mulana EX, which was the version for the PS Vita. The only thing that kind of changed, so like, hang on a second. Yeah, so this is Elmac. It's another kind of little bit of a random boss fight. The track height is random, and I want the track to be high enough so that I can actually hit him with my weapon, because, you know, otherwise the fight's kind of going nowhere. So, pretty easy fight with the gear that I've got right now. So yeah, they never actually patched out the pot clip. They just changed it so that the pots aren't wall adjacent, which is a very creative and lovely way to change a problem with your game. Is not to change the underlying problem, but, you know, just to, oh, well, we can just move the pots. So this is Mulbrook. She likes to sleep a whole lot. And she also has the Book of the Dead, which I need to kill a mini-boss. So we're just going to talk to her a whole bunch, and then she's going to give it up. And we can go on our merry way back into this area. So that we can face off with Anubis. Alright. So I need to hit that face with a shuriken. I throw more than one. In fact, I throw quite a few. 3. Because the hitbox on that face doesn't always work properly, so it's better just to make sure. This is not the latest version, Cab. This is version 1.331 of the game. The latest PC version that you can get on Steam, and, you know, patches for in other places, is 1.552. So this is Anubis. Normally this death ball that he's channeling here would just outright kill you, but now it just drains my life because I have the Book of the Dead. So it's best to hang up on the wall there, which manipulates Anubis into channeling that spell. And then I can just beat him up with the axe. So another big shopping trip right there. I picked up a piece of software, which is the map. And I also picked up all of the weights that I'm going to use for the rest of the game. So I don't need to buy any more weights at this point, which is really nice. What am I doing? So, this is Argus. Argus is actually a mini-boss that does not have iframes. And because Argus doesn't have iframes, I can use caltrops to kill him really, really quickly. Because every time you use a caltrop, you throw about 4 of them, and they each do, you know, like 2 damage, somewhere in that kind of range. Whoops. Let's try that again. Let's try that again. Normally I'm supposed to open the chest with a shuriken, and then I just catch the bottom lip of it before falling down. But that's not happening. So this is the Gate of Time that I opened up earlier with the Key Fairy. And this is what the original La-Mulana game looked like. It's very much so kind of styled after the Maze of Nightmare 2, Maze of Gallius, which was a primary inspiration for this game. And the reason why we come here is because there's this little secret passage here that leads into this super dark, kind of spooky place called the Tower of the Goddess. So normally in a playthrough, you are not supposed to get access to this area before you fought the 5th guardian of the game, named V. Please stop shooting me in the face. Thank you. But because that secret passage exists, we can get in here. And the reason why we want to get in here is because of that flail whip that I mentioned earlier. So as I mentioned before as well, the axe is really good. it does 5 damage, which is quite good, quite high. But the Flail Whip does 8 damage per swing, and on top of that, it is also a much faster attack speed than the axe is. So I just need to do a pot clip or grapple clip in here, because later on this does wind up becoming, you know, a quote-unquote legitimate screen transition. So definitely no cheating, because, you know, my getting into this screen was entirely developer intended. And we'll go ahead and complete this puzzle, of which La Mesa is actually a puzzle piece. And then I want to get through that thing. Thank you. So we've got the Flail Whip. Ow. Also, you may be able to see what I just whipped there. It's called an abaku. And they're like these little invisible enemies that like to screw with you. Alright. So now we're going to be coming here to fight Sekit, who is the third guardian of the run and the second guardian in the game. So Sekit wanders around a lot and then throws punches if he feels like it. Normally, Sekit will throw a punch if he gets to this edge of the screen. Almost always, I think. So we finish off the face mask, and then, yeah, we shoot him in the face twice with, you know, a gun. Which turns out, guns are pretty good. Who knew? So, killing Sekit doesn't really do a tremendous amount for me right now, but I do want to be in this area so that I can go into this pod, because that's a thing. And break this seal right here. So there's 2 seals on that screen. I'll be coming back to break the other one. A little bit later. You know, in like a minute or 2. And that's what's going to sort of power up the Tower of the Goddess, which I was in earlier. We must make the water flow. But before I do that, I want to get my method of traversing to different types of grail points. But in addition to that, I also want to grab a really nice item called the Gauntlet, which is going to increase my attack speed tremendously. So the piece of software I just picked up is called Future Development Company, or Mirai. A lot of the pieces of software that you can collect in this game are actually Nigaro's, who's the Japanese developer that made La-Mulana. It's their other Flash games, of which Future Development Company is actually... it's pretty fun. So what Mirai allows me to do once I have it installed, which I do now, is that I can now teleport to backside fields. So every field in this game has kind of like a front side and a backside. Just the way that kind of the game mechanics wind up working. So for example, you know, earlier you saw, hey, I was in the Temple of Sunlight, the backside is the Temple of Moonlight. And there are a number of puzzles that kind of go around those ideas in a sort of thematic fashion. Alright, so now that we've activated this place, these floating mini-boss things are awake, and we can just dummy them because we've got a really sweet weapon. I really hope... Oh, nice. I was really hoping to get one of these drops, because this is a sub-weapon called a Chakram. And the Chakram is, or has, one of the most powerful damage effects in the entire game. So, Ah, damn. I didn't get that. So I want to throw a shuriken at that statue, which is considered a sacred object. And I get shocked by lightning, and normally it's to make it so that I land on a platform there rather than falling the entire length. Which I didn't get, but that's alright. But yeah, the chakrams do 12 damage a hit. It's the same amount of damage as the gun, once it's upgraded with the ring, which is another item that I'm going to scoop up a little later. And having 3 at this point is really good, because I want to duplicate them. And speaking of duplicating them, we're coming for fairies again! So I don't want a key fairy out of this one, so it's not the 5% chance. This one is a 15% chance, and it gets me what is called an item fairy, or a treasure fairy, as it's sometimes referred to. So this is the one where it's a 15% chance. It has the 4 stars, but they're rotating in different directions. So 2 clockwise, 2 counterclockwise. This one's usually a fair bit sooner, which, you know, is reflected in the odds. The unfortunate part is that if you actually get this one quite slow, it wastes more time because it takes me a lot longer to trigger the screen transition and return to spawn another one. So this is quite bad luck already, as far as this one is concerned. Just keep getting them healing fairies. So what the treasure fairy does is multiply drops. So that chest had, I think, 30 coins in it at the outset. But I think it multiplies it by 5? So I would have gotten 150 out of it. Same thing with this coin chest that's coming up right here. So I need a lot of money to do a lot of stuff. And this fairy is going to help me get it all. Also, I can dupe chakrams by throwing them through the wall a little bit right there. And the thing is that the treasure fairy also multiplies drops. So it multiplies, you know, if something drops weights, or if it drops coins, if it drops chakrams. You know, as long as it counts as a drop, quote-unquote, then it multiplies. If I actually catch the chakram as it's flying, you just collect the one that you've thrown, because the game doesn't count it as a drop. But as long as it hits, like, a second wall, then, you know, you're doing pretty good in that regard. So, this is all you're going to see of the lower Gate of Illusion. Normally there's a whole bunch of work that I have to do there. But we're not doing that anymore. I'm going directly over here because I want to light up the twins. The twins have to get lit. It's kind of a requirement. Rude. Alright. So we go from here. And this is another place where you're going to see some sort of substantial reordering of events if you've seen previous runs of this game. Because I'm going to go and fight Baphomet, who is one of the kind of later bosses in this game. Normally this room will have, or this room does have, a timer. So if you're real bad at the floor clip there, or the, sorry, not the floor clip, the grapple clip to get into the pots, then you're going to die in that room because the timer is going to run out. And when the timer runs out, you die. I think I said the same thing twice just now, but that's okay. Because we didn't die, because I'm not in the room with the poisonous gas anymore. And this is that ring that I was talking about earlier. So now, all of my sub-weapons are going to do... Well, most of my sub-weapons are going to do more damage. But on top of that, any thrown sub-weapons are also going to move a whole lot faster. So I'm doing a raindrop into this room, and honestly I don't understand why this one works, because that's not a legit transition. But it's fine. It's really fine. So I'm just setting up the rest of the fight right there, so that the Ankh Jewel is ready to be broken, and then we'll scoot in here and grab this health upgrade, which conveniently fills up my health. Yeah, people die when they are killed. Like, if that gas killed me, I was gonna be dead. So this is Baphomet. Baphomet's first phase is deterministic. And that's exactly how it should go. Baphomet's second phase is random. Very random, which is why I'm going to be using the gun to throw home a lot of damage. This is an unfortunate spawn point, because I can't really hit her very well while she's up there. But this should be it. Yeah, there we go. Also a fun thing, we'll just, see ya. Lameza is celebrating somewhere underneath the floor. It's fine. So here's another raindrop. You're supposed to solve this puzzle to get up here to grab this Lamp of Time, but I'm not doing that. And also because I haven't actually visited the place where I would normally want to go in order to refill the Lamp of Time, which is how you get it to work. I'm just going over here and getting... I didn't get it! I was like waiting there for at least a number of seconds. Damn ice wizards. Okay. There we go. Now we're in there. The only puzzle worth solving is how do I go fast. It's very insightful. I like it. Yeah, I solved the unsolvable puzzle by not solving it. It's kind of a joke because, like, in the original La-Mulana, that puzzle was not made properly, so you couldn't actually solve it. So you just had to, like, jump up to the... you just had to jump up to the shop in a very specific and not, like, super tricky way. But yeah, so they made a point of making a tablet in this one where it's like, oh man, you have to actually solve this now, you know. The people that originally made this puzzle totally screwed up. It's kind of, you know, it's a bit of a meta joke that's in the game. But yeah, we don't actually solve it now, so that's pretty cool. So I need to read these 3 tablets because they start triggers for other puzzles in this area that I need to do. And upcoming is going to be the first usage of a glitch involving the Lamp of Time. So normally the Lamp of Time just, you know, stops time, and then you can use that for a variety of things that are good for, you know, solving puzzles or doing other things. But here I'm going to use it off-screen from what I like to refer to as a 2-state puzzle object, which is that floor right there. You're not supposed to be able to go through that floor. You have to solve a puzzle to go through that floor. But because I use the Lamp of Time off-screen from it, for some reason, the game doesn't really recognize that it's there yet. Like, it doesn't activate the flag for that floor to exist, which means that you can just pass right through it. And there are a number of those 2-state puzzle objects that exist in this game. and I'm going to be going through quite a number of them, using the Lamp of Time in that same fashion. So the mini-boss I killed back there was Chiyo. And Chiyo is someone that needs to die because I need the Key of Eternity. You know, for finishing the game reasons. Doesn't really do anything cool, it's just one of those things you gotta have. In a lot of these places, including that fight with Chiyo, you can see how powerful the Flail Whip is. You know, like Thunderbird right there just doesn't even stand a chance. I mean, granted, you know, it's also the case that I kind of came into the boss arena exactly where it spawns, so that could also be a reason why it doesn't really do too well. So I'm freezing time here because I need to be able to see those weird white things that are flying around, because they move super fast. Which I guess implies that the Lamp of Time doesn't actually stop time, it just slows it down, or something like that. But, you know, what can you do? Here I have to spell out a certain word in La-Mulanese to get the Ankh Jewel. And I'm going to be using another lamp glitch to actually go through the exact same floor. Right there. And this is the last time that I'm basically going to be needing to get into this area down here. And now I gotta wait for this lizard. So hopefully I can manipulate this lizard into doing what I want the lizard to do. And I did. Because I need the lizard to walk in front of that light. Which is what solves the puzzle. So you can kind of manipulate it a little bit. Alright. The piece of software I bought there in the shop is called Lonely House Moving, another really rather amusing game by Niguro. And when I now equip Move and Death V in combination, it greatly extends Lameza's invulnerability frames, which is super useful, because then I can kind of pass through... Yeah, I can pass through enemies, I can move faster. You know, typically it's good for taking less damage and that kind of thing, but it's more so for the speed reasons that I want to equip it. So I'm going to skip doing that puzzle because I can just raindrop through the floor. Oh hey, it's a first try item fairy, rather than the 60% chance key fairy, or sorry, healing fairy, that I should have gotten first try. Because... well, you know, that's just how these things go. Doing another raindrop here, which is going to get me into the latter half of this, or like the very end, rather, of this giant trap room. So now I can just do that, and we're pretty much done with it. And then I'll use this teleporter. And this damage boost. As you can see, I can make it through that area without getting hit again, which just winds up being faster. So here's another new piece of tech, which was sort of a spin-off of the thing that I found on Thursday. Raindrop Dry found this one in particular, which is hilarious. So we don't really have to fight that Black Bard or Tai Sui, which is this giant bowl of... well, I mean, it's not really a bowl. It's kind of like a pile of gelatin with eyeballs. So I'm just going to clip into the Shrine of the Mother here. And not bother fighting those dudes. And, you know, more clipping. It's fine. So originally when Raindrop found these strats, or found the raindrop, as it were. The initial experimentation was that you couldn't really skip Tai Sui or Black Bard And the reason for that is that when you clip out that way, you always come here, which is the Shrine of the Mother. And later on in the game, this area changes into a different area. So the fact that you clip here rather than the other place that you definitely want to go was a serious problem. But because of the technique that I found on Thursday, RDD found out kind of a really cool way of alleviating that problem, which you'll see pretty much at the end of the game. Oh, I'm gonna get you. So it used to be faster to take another route to get up there, but because of the raindrop, that way is much faster. So I had to unequip the invulnerability frame stuff. Well, actually, I'll cover that in a moment. So this is V. This is the 5th Guardian of the game, and the one that I would have had to have killed in order to get into the Tower of the Goddess and get the Flail Whip. So now I'm going to use the Flail Whip to just totally blow V the hell out. It's pretty good. I don't remember what I put off saying.
I could cut in right now if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. So, just want to remind everybody that we are raising money for 4 of our runners that are going to HDQ. We have a donation incentive for this run if we reach at least $20 by the end of the run, which is at about 15 minutes from now. Then Hidden will be doing the Hell Temple, so if you want to see that, go ahead and donate even a couple bucks towards our way.
Alright. So this whole area is, again, kind of changed in the rerouting, because, you know, you can just clip into whatever you want. Ah yes, that was what I was going to talk about. So I unequipped, because I don't actually have enough memory on my laptop right now to run the software that allows me to transport to backside fields, as well as the one that increases the length of my invulnerability frames, which is actually good at this point in time in the run, because I don't want longer iframes. You would have noticed when I came down the 2 ladders towards V, I caltrop boosted down both of those. And I wouldn't have been able to do that with a extended invulnerability frame. So you do wind up saving time in a bunch of places and having kind of more predictable, you know, more predictable damage boosting and that kind of thing. With it unequipped at this point in time in the game. So I won't actually be equipping it until a little ways from now. So I've got to hang out in this room right now, because these fuzzy, lovely, glowing lights are going to make that woman statue that I just picked up a moment ago pregnant, so it's now a maternity statue. I expect each and every one of you to contribute to the baby shower. So, so now I'm actually going to make the poisonous fog disappear, or go away. And normally we'd go to the left because I have to do a bunch of stuff over there, but I've already done all of that stuff earlier. So now we're just going to go straight up here. So this is what I was talking about earlier with respect to having to go back to an area and get an Ankh Jewel for a boss that I'd previously defeated. So we tossed Baphomet to the curb earlier, but I haven't picked up her Ankh Jewel, which is right here. So we can do that while I'm busy doing other things. Again, to cut out backtracking and that kind of thing. And at least try and optimize all of that sort of stuff with respect to the route. Don't even know what a baby shower is. That's entirely fair. I'm not actually sure. I mean, I know what it is, in the sense that it's like, you know, often a great deal of women get together and then, you know, give gifts to the expecting mother. But I don't know why it's called a baby shower, because I don't think there's actually any, like, are you showering the baby with gifts? Is that what that's meant to be? Pepsi for baby shower. Awesome. So this is the first Guardian in the game, Amphisbaena. That was the first Guardian in the game, Amphisbaena. I don't believe that is the case, Seeking, no. Very mysterious. Alright, so this part right here is kind of the culmination of a lot of different threads. So very early in the game, when I bought all of the weights that I needed for the run, I also bought a map software. This is another map software that when used in concert, they give you like kind of like the whole picture of the map. And then we need to look at this map, which I got earlier when I was going through the Twin Labyrinths, so that I can use the Dragon Held Skull right there, and it eliminates a bunch of walls from the Shrine of the Mother so that I can move around there in a desirable fashion. So now that I've done all that, I can show this talisman that I picked up after having killed V, which is kind of the trigger for that. And Zelpud tells me to go and look for my father's diary. Which is what I'm going to be doing right now. Also, I picked up the laptop back there, so now I have twice the amount of memory to install all those sweet, sweet Negro Flash games. Ow. So there's Dad climbing the ladder right over there. So we're gonna chase him down and take a look at a room that has a closed chest in it. And then we gotta go talk to Zelpud again. Because this is, you know, me discovering the diary. And now I have to go back to that same screen right again. So plot-wise, what's going on in this game is that Lameza has come to the ruins of La-Mulana to look for his father. His father sent him a letter saying, you know, I've found it, I've found La-Mulana, I found, you know, the secret of life, or something. Along those kinds of lines. And then nothing. He disappeared. So Lameza, being, you know, like a cool dude and a good son, was like, damn, I gotta go look for Pops. So that's pretty much why we're in the ruins right here. So we grab Dad's diary, and then we show it to Zelpud, and Zelpud's like, hey, you know, we're like a race of, you know, these things, and children, and the mother, and basically it's a giant plot dump, which, I'll maybe not spoil everything about the nature of the story in this game in case you're interested in picking it up. But much things occur. what kinds of workouts does Zelpud do? Well, the things that I know about Zelpud is that he likes to play a whole lot of games. He plays like a lot of video games. And he's also a huge fan of the ladies. You know, Zelpud is a virile old man of, you know, probably several hundred years old. So, yeah, you know, he's got that workout routine going for him, I'm sure. Gotta stay fit, you know, to play those video games. Oh, yeah. So, I need to break all of these pots at the same time in this room, which is, like, I think one of the only legitimate uses of the Lamp of Time that I do in, like, the entire run. There's one other that I can think of off the top of my head. The text for that puzzle is really funny. It's basically about making a dancing child sad because I've broken all of his toys. So that's Ba. Ba is actually a tricky boss, but there's some really good strats to kind of get rid of him. So that's the three things I needed to do in this area. Burn off the lizard, break the child's toys, and kill Ba. And that gives me the Cog of the Soul, which is something I'm going to be needing. Thank you. I really didn't want 3 weights. Yeah, that's not what I was looking for. Is this pawn? No, that's weights also. So for some reason, for some very mysterious reason, I am short on money right now. So I'm just, I managed to totally luck out with a key fairy. I didn't actually, like, this isn't, this treasure fairy, excuse me, is not routed into this speed run. I just kind of looked at how much cash I have, and I know exactly how much I need coming into this area at the very least. Which is 150, because I need to go into this secret shop right here and buy the Ankh Jewel so that I can fight the boss. So, kind of a clutch item fairy there. Though I'm probably a little bit short at this point, so I might grab some extra money along the way. I'm not sure entirely what part of the reroute has resulted in my having less money than I should. But, you know, the game keeps changing, and it's like, wait a minute, why is this happening the way that it's happening? So, we clip into this pot, and then get through this teleporter down here. I need to break something on the other side of this wall. Not that one. And then zip down this one with the raindrop. And here I need to do the Dance of Life, which is attack 3 times to the left and 3 times to the right, and then jump. I don't know what's so lifey about that dance, but there it is. And that's what I needed to do in order to spawn this mini-boss, named Skanda. Skanda has some great animations, but we're not going to see them, because I use a lamp charge to skip this fight, because it is super slow. So I need to be very careful in this room to a certain respect, because if I wind up falling, I will fall forever. And that's really inconvenient. Because I'm pretty sure my time slot in the marathon doesn't include forever. I don't know if Boyks could confirm that. I'm pretty sure all of time in history in the future is not something that is currently included in the Valuethon. I could be wrong, though. I could be wrong. Whoop. Let me check. Alright, he's on the case. Excellent.
I just checked the schedule, and it says forever on there, so...
It does say forever. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think you're good.
Well, I mean, you know, it's probably for the best that I didn't fall down there, but, you know, it's good to know that if I did, you know, we've got our bases covered. It's important to have these things. Though Captain does raise an excellent point, losing forever is probably not good for your splits. It's, that is an excellent point. Alright. So, I'm going to be facing off against the second to last Guardian that I'm going to fight in the game, who goes by Palanque, which, interestingly, is designed after a mural called the King of Palanque, or something like that. This is, like, actually inspired off of, you know, like, some, like, Mayan mural art thing, which is actually true for a lot of the stuff in this game. It's not just like, hey, here's, like, a cool video game monster, we designed this boss, hope you like it. It's like, oh yeah, so this was found somewhere in the world in, like, an archaeological, you know, find or dig site or something cool, and I just threw it into the game. It's on theme because La-Mulana is supposed to be, like, the origin of all life and all civilization. So, you know, it's, the plot things. Alright, so now I have to go and do one of the big things that related to the maternity statue, which is I need to go and talk to a bunch of philosophers who won't talk to me unless I have that thing, because I need to get it, and then I need to sleep in this thing, which is the representation of a womb, and then this box opens up, and I get this ocarina, and now the philosophers are no longer, like, turned to stone. And that makes sense. You know, like, I learned about that stuff in grade school. Like, that just makes sense. I should have this. Yeah. Cool. So you can skip having to wait for that elevator to go back up if you time that properly, which I did. So in there. This skeleton is the worst skeleton in the game, and the reason why is because skeletons cannot be injured or hurt or killed while they are currently in the process of standing up. And that skeleton is in just the right place, such that he will stand up while you are on your way to get down to that next area. And there's really, like, nothing you can do to stop it from ruining your day. And it's pretty annoying, and it happens to me basically all the time. So that's fun. No, I believe that's correct. The Womb Ocarina was not in Zelda. The ocarina that was in Zelda was like the super creepy, like, you know, hey, you know, I'll remember you forever ocarina, and then Link takes like 2 like super awkward steps back and then runs away as fast as his legs will carry him. That was the way that I always saw that scene. I mean, other people could have different interpretations, but it's okay to be wrong. So this is the Dimensional Corridor. I'm gonna have to fight a whole bunch of mini-bosses in here. All of them are Tiamat's children, Tiamat being the last guardian in the ruins and in the game. So basically, I have to make Tiamat super mad by killing all of her progeny. And then I'm gonna whip her in the face a whole lot. Okay, so coming up here is another boss that doesn't have iframes, so I'm going to try and do a 1-cycle kill using the Caltrops. And I didn't get it. The timing on it is really tight. Yeah, I was only off like like a couple of Caltrops there. But it's really, really tricky to get that one on a single cycle. I do have 1 lamp charge for this area, which I'm going to use for this boss. This boss has an incredible amount of health. Remember that the Chakram at this point does 12 damage and my whip does 8, so... huge damage sponge. It also does a ton of damage and is super random, so it's really the best place in the Dimensional Corridor boss rush to use the lamp charge. At least at this point in time. Which I don't necessarily see changing in the near future, but hey, you never know. So this is the 3rd of 4 philosophers, and also the last philosopher that I'm going to talk to. The 4th philosopher is the one that gets you into the room with the flail whip. So I really don't care about talking to that one. And normally I would, or in previous iterations of the route, I would scan those tablets there, which are a requirement. But in order to read those tablets, you need the super special decoder ring thing for the ancient La-Mulanese, which I don't have yet, and it's faster to go and get it and then return, as far as the routing is concerned. So I will be doing that in a little while. Or I'll be totally forgetting about it and then looking like a bit of a goon. But, you know, fingers crossed. So you can see on the board we are missing 3 children at this point. Only got 3 left, and then we can fight Timon. It's good. So throughout this area I've been working out, or I've been, I mean, not tracking, I know which ones I need to grab and which ones I don't. My soul stone count. Wait a second here, I need to listen to the flapping of wings. Dang. But I've been keeping track of how many soul stones I have in this area, and then basically I'm going to get enough from killing Mushusu here, who, again, you normally need to like solve a puzzle to get into this area, but solving puzzles is slow, so not going to bother doing that. And that gives me the Ankh Jewel, and now we are off to fight Tiamat. So previously, strats to fight Tiamat included using bombs, but I skipped getting bombs because we don't need them anymore. So I'm basically going to be using all caltrops all the time. And hopefully I don't screw it up because it is a little bit trickier. Yeah. Okay. Wow, that was a swing and a miss. So I don't want to get hit by this waterfall here, because it does a ton of damage. I also don't want to get hit by this thing, which is going to kill me in one shot. So, that's not the best fight. Ideally, you should kill Tiamat before she pulls the trigger on the laser in the third phase. But not too bad. Wow, I actually saved a ton of time on that split. Speaking of things that will kill me... So now I'm doing basically the end of game wrap-up sort of section. I need to do a bunch of stuff that will allow me to fight the last boss. Yeah, that should be fun. I know where I can get a little bit of extra money at this point. Oop. There's a couple of mini-bosses that I'm going to be killing up here that I usually don't pick up the money for because it's just not necessary, but in interests of having money to buy the things that I need, I'm going to do that. So this is Horsehead and Oxface, or Oxhead and Horseface, I don't remember which. Whenever you kill the horse one, the ox one kind of gets like super bummed out and just sorts of slowly backs away. And doesn't do anything at all. Which is convenient for me, but it's also a little bit sad. Alright, so I now have all of the stuff for the translation here, so I can go ahead and grab that. And now this is a pretty sweet clip. When is Peggle? Yeah, it's right now. Don't you recognize it? So there's more of those like invisible fish in this room, and falling down there would kind of be disastrous. So we use the Lamp of Time, but the other reason why I'm using the Lamp of Time is so that I can get into this statue, which will allow me to interact with that dais, which helps me skip 3 of the mantras, which are sort of a quasi-important thing in this game. But the first 3 are skipped in the speedrun. Okay, so the piece of software that I just bought was called Torday. And it helps you scan background mural type stuff. Like this thing. So I'm going to scan that, and within it is a piece of code, which is another piece of software called mantra.exe. And that's what I actually need to chant mantras along with an item that I'm going to be getting in just a minute here. No. So when you're swapping between areas to go to on the Grail screen, you can't really buffer the inputs, so you have to press... Dang it. You have to press the button, like, at just the right time. So if you're hitting the button kind of, like, you know, not in the appropriate way, then, you know, you can screw up teleporting and that kind of thing. Like sitting here, which item do I need to swap to? There we go. So now that I have this thing called the Jed Pillar, I can chant mantras all day. Ow. Jerk. And I'll need to chant mantra... Whoa. A mantra here, and here. So death to those 2, and then birth on this screen. Which is the flavor of summer drink that Ma loves best. She likes lemonade, she doesn't like the cherry Kool-Aid or the lime Kool-Aid. And now we're going to get back on the business of chanting the mantras. So we're going to be ripping through these pretty quickly. Nice. Yeah, there's no purple drink, I'm afraid to say. It's very unfortunate. So normally you'd come up to this area earlier to do the puzzle to get the bombs and to fight Kamaitachi, who's not a difficult boss, but is a dangerous boss. Kamaitachi does a lot of damage, so if you make mistakes, you're basically dead. These bats? Why? Excuse me. Let's go. Thank you. Alright, so that is our last... sure. Mantra. I'm going to buy some extra bullets here, because they are good. And now I have... I'm supposed to basically end the game with not, like, you know, a whole lot of money or anything. Which is where I'm at. So we never finished this puzzle earlier, so I do have to go and do another raindrop here. Ow. And I'm getting a healing fairy here because I kind of need it, to be honest. Okay. So you're about to see some pretty weird stuff. So what I'm going to be doing up here is clipping into the Shrine of the Mother after these... Oh! Okay, I just found... I totally remembered. That's where the money I'm missing comes from. I've solved everything. So I'm going to clip into the Shrine of the Mother here, rather than the true shrine, which is where I want to go. And then we'll just do this, and there we go. Everything's fine. We're all doing fine here. So, for some reason when you clip in there, it sends you to the Shrine of the Mother rather than the true Shrine of the Mother, despite the fact that the true Shrine of the Mother has in fact been activated. But because you can slip around a little bit during the screen transition, from one zone to a next if you're in the floor, it means that you can kind of slip over and get sent or zipped back up. At which point you just kind of continue to do that until you are where the ladder is supposed to be, and then you climb down the ladder, and then you're in business, basically. No! Okay, good. Now we're going to use the lamp time to skip fighting Beelzebub, because when you freeze time here, the door that closes that's supposed to keep you in this arena doesn't close, because time is frozen. I'm also saving and quitting to the menu right here, because if you save and quit while the lamp of time is currently active, and then continue, your lamp charge will refill. And our last lamp charge of the game here, I can just walk through that tentacle. Normally you have to beat up on it and then it moves, but It's a little bit faster to do it that way. Also, less chance of you getting dummied by something. So, here we are. This is the last boss in the game, so if you were interested in seeing a run of Hell Temple after this, now is definitely the time to get your donation in and get that met. So, fighting this phase of Mother is a bit weird because of where her tail is, as far as the hitbox is concerned. It's really only a problem on the right side of her body, so you have to jump up and hit her with the axe from the left. Her swooping is much better, because then you can just hit her with the chakrams, which do a lot more damage. Speaking of chakrams, I'm going to use an old strat for this boss here. Because I want to conserve caltrops. And this is the last phase, where we'll see Mother use a lot of attacks from all of the other Guardians that we had previously fought throughout the run. Good. So, Mother's patterns are usually pretty random in this phase, but if you play it in just kind of the right way, you can get her to preload her next attacks in a very specific pattern, at which point you can totally predict where she's going to be, and, you know, when you can predict where she's going to be, it is game over for Ma. Alright. So, we're now into the escape. The escape has changed substantially as well, which is pretty fantastic. So we don't go out through the endless corridor and then swim through the, you know, go into the pod and take the things. We're just gonna go down here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do like this modified raindrop into the wall here. And then we'll do the slip, which will send me right up here. And we're on our way. So just to put this into perspective as well, the fastest escape time that I ever hit on the previous like escape strats was a 3:28, and that was like by far like it was basically a perfect escape. It was just absolutely nuts in terms of how fast it was. And I made some movement errors here, but that's a casual 352. So definitely a lot of time saved. And that's time. On a scale of -5 to 5, how would I rate La-Mulana? I would rate it a curry out of 10.
So I think I ended a little bit early, probably 139.14.
Yeah, by my timer, it was a 139.16. But that's a PB for me. So you can definitely see the like the power of the new run here. I spent a very, very long time getting a key fairy and a long time getting an item fairy, and I'm still like, you know, a minute and 4 seconds ahead of my better time, which was a 1:40:20. So you can definitely imagine in a better run with some better luck and, you know, maybe not mistakes and commentating for marathon, stuff like that, the time really comes down. The world record in this game is currently a 1:37:17 by Raindrop Dry. So